Living here at Rebecca Johnson's apartment, I feel safe. I'm comfortable with being able to come and go as I please, have my own key to my apartment. They will not kick me out. It's a safe place to be all the way around, with a job, with unemployment, or without. I was brought up in a household with mother, father, 2 brothers, a grandmother. We were well-to-do. I've always had a job, had a car since I was 16 years old, and I never thought I would be homeless. When my dad asked me to leave, I had nowhere to go, and I was too embarrassed to tell my friends that my dad had asked me to leave. The verbal abuse, the threats, I didn't feel safe anymore. He told me that he didn't want to hurt me, so he asked me to leave. I had nowhere to go, so I lived in my car. And I would sneak back into the garage at dusk, and I would leave the door open maybe a half an inch. I would lock my car doors and get in the back seat, and I would go to sleep. The traumatic part about living in my car is that I would hear things banging up against the garage, and I would be afraid. I would be afraid at night. It would be cold. Some nights I would run the car for heat, and I did that during the course of the night to stay warm. I've lost 35 to 40 pounds. I just felt like I had no reason to be here. My grandmother has a statement when you're really depressed or you're feeling thrown away. She would say something like, "I feel as low as a snake's belly to the ground." And that's how I felt. I felt terrible. Today, living at Rebecca Johnson's apartment, I see how grateful I am to have a place to call my own. I learned about Deborah's place through some friends. I belong to a women's group, over 150 women, and we support each other. And there was a lady, when I opened up and I started talking about being homeless, I started talking about not feeling worthy. There were women in the group that told me about Deborah's place, that wrote me a homeless letter, because that was one of the criteria that I needed to get here. And once I got here, they had a waiting list, and I guess it was just my turn.
Experiencing homelessness is a stressful and traumatic event in itself. Pauline additionally has some pretty serious health conditions, and living in your car and living on the street absolutely exacerbates that issue.
Despite being in poor health, not feeling well, going through the stress of homelessness, she has an amazing positive energy. She has forged friendships already while being here, and she cares about her neighbors.
When Deborah's Place was formed, we were seeing that there was a gap in services for single homeless women. You either needed to go to a shelter with men or were required to have children under their care. A lot of homeless women have experienced trauma from men. Some women actually opt to stay on the street rather than to go to a shelter with a man in it. Deborah's Place tried to fill the gap to service single, unaccompanied homeless women in Chicago. We have 3 permanent housing sites. At Rebecca Johnson Apartments, we hold 90 apartment units. Deborah's Place also has 3 learning centers, a safe haven, and interim housing. One of my favorite things about working here is developing relationships with the women. And there's a handful of women who avoided me at all costs when I first started here. Over the last year or so, I've been able to develop trust and rapport with them and are working with them more closely now.
We sit down and make goals. I said I want to be working by July. So I have my resume together, and I've been online and passing my resume out.
Working with these women, I've seen so much strength in them, and they've gone through something that I myself don't know if I could survive.
When I first came here, I didn't socialize, I didn't do any of the programs. I isolated myself. The women would say things like, "Welcome to Deborah's Place. I'm glad you're here." And it took me about 2 months to believe that they were glad I was here. And since I've been here, I've been able to give back some of the things that was given to me. And I like being here. My goal is to use Deborah's place as a stepping stone, get myself back up on my feet, then I'll move on, make room for another woman that needs the assistance like I had.